Hello and welcome to This Inspired Life. My name is Andy Taylor, and in this video I'm going to take you through the process that I call Life by Design. Now, before I get started, I'd like to thank you for your feedback on the previous videos, and I'd like to invite you to join the community, to join the channel, to subscribe and get notified every time we release new content. It really means a lot. So without further ado and no further preamble, Life by Design, what is it? What do I mean when I say Life by Design, and why specifically use that terminology? Well, the way that I see it and the way that I describe it to people is Life by Design is no different than if you were to be thinking of constructing something, right? So I use the analogy of building your dream home. Okay, you need certain things in place at certain times. So in the dream home analogy and scenario, you're required to have a good solid foundation, okay? And then you can build the framework of the house, the fabric of the house, and then you get to fill in the details. Okay, so the three layers that I utilize with Life by Design, as well as the scenario of building your dream home, are quite simply the foundational elements. Then you have the framework, and then you have the details. Okay, so Life by Design itself is very simple in its elegance, and it's very elegant in its simplicity. So it works both ways. And the reason I say that is because we've already touched on the foundational elements in previous videos, because we've spoken about the three layers of self, and we've spoken about rediscovering or discovering for the first time your true authentic self. That is one of the foundational elements of Life by Design. The other foundational elements are awareness, perspective, and perception. When you have all three of those, along with knowing who you really are at your core, it provides a really good solid foundation from which to build that dream home, to construct that dream life. Now, why by design? Well, simply put, when you just rush headlong into something and you give it no thought, it doesn't tend to go entirely the way that you want it to. And even though there is a tendency these days to think, well, okay, well, I sit and plan stuff and it doesn't work out either, I would still very much recommend that you take some time, you sit with the idea that you can create the life that you love. You can create a life that makes you go, wow, every morning when you wake up, and you know you get to live it and experience it. So that's why I use the term specifically, the term design. And what I want you to take away from this is the fact that, excuse me, the design element of it, it transcends, it basically encompasses all the three of the tiers. So you need to be able to have that ability, you need to have that concept, that understanding of being able to design it for yourself. Your life is all about what you want it to be. Okay, so many people are living lives other people want them to live. And if you're in a job you're unhappy with, you're doing exactly that. If you're in a marriage you're unhappy in, you're doing exactly that. So, just take that away and just sit with that just for a while. If you're in either of those situations or another situation that has a similar effect on you, anything that makes you sit and think, is this really all there is? Or, I have to put up with it, or I'm coping, or I'm making do. Okay, making do is not what we were here to do. Okay, so as human beings, we were put here for a purpose. We each have a purpose. I firmly believe that. And I think once we discover who we truly are, and we get in touch with our core self and our core values and our core beliefs about who we are and what we are capable of, and the infinite potential that is there, and the infinite number of opportunities that surround us every single day, and you have that increased awareness, which shifts your perception and changes your perspective, it all works together. They all work together as foundational elements for creating a life by design. I'll go into a little bit more detail, excuse me, terrible throat this today. So yeah, the four foundational elements of awareness, perspective, perception, and knowing who you truly are, knowing your true self, they all interlink, they all interact with each other, but there is no sequence. Okay, and they don't always interact in the same way, because sometimes you might be in a conversation with somebody who makes you think about things differently, which changes your perspective. So you look at a situation from a different point of view. Current affairs, the way the world is at the moment, we're in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, but also you have the protests going on in the United States. And a lot of people have said the same thing to me, in as much as it really makes you think, right? You see what's going on over there and it really makes you think, and it really does. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, is the fact that you could see something on the news or read an article. And although I don't really do much with the media, I certainly don't read the news stories. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the news. And I don't tend to get involved in conversations that are either political or just generally nonsensical. But it does make you think. And so many people have said that to me. So it's an important one to notice. And it very much plays into what I'm talking about with regards to the foundational elements of life by design, in that they work together to create this foundation, this good, solid, firm foundation, but not in a particular order. And it can change and it shifts. And, you can just suddenly, like I say, be in a conversation with somebody that makes you more aware of what's going on in the world, which changes your perspective. So your awareness can shift your perspective, or being in a conversation with somebody or witnessing something that makes you see something from another point of view can change your awareness. So it works both ways, and it works in all ways as well. And when you change either of those two things, your perception of the world and how it is, and your opportunities and your potential changes too. And it will oftentimes trigger you to become more self-aware. And the term self-aware is basically, it's literally does what it says on the tin. It's being more aware of yourself, which is what we were talking about in the video on the 3 layers of self, where you're getting back in touch with who you truly are. So with that said, those are the foundational elements. So that they form the foundation of life by design. So being more aware of who you truly are, getting back in touch with who you truly are, and becoming more aware of life and the world around you, and your opportunities and your infinite potential, and the ability you have now to step back, change your perspective, see the world a different way, more of what there is to be seen, and view all the possible opportunities that are out there for you from a different perspective. That leads us on to, when we have the foundation set, that leads us into the structure or the framework of your dream home or your life by design. Now, the framework it's the technical elements. It's where we get into the outcome setting, and it's where we get into the real detail. It's where we get into the imagination element of it. It's where we talk about being able to set back and being able to think really hard and spend some time on, so how do I want my life to be? So how do I want my relationships to be? And how do I want my business to be? What do I want to be doing for a living? Who do I want to be serving with my work? Who do I want to be helping in the world? How do I want my relationships to be? How do I want my finances to be? What do I want to do with my spare time? Who do I want my friends to be? And it's all of those things that we get to then spend time on and focus on to create this vividly imagined life. And this is the planning stage of the whole process. And as with building a house, it starts early. So it starts before you need to kind of at least think about what you want from life before you think about the foundations, right? Like building a house, you wouldn't just lay out foundations with no idea of how big the property was or how high the property was with regards to how deep the foundations need to be. And it's the same with life by design. So you need to be doing this from the outset. So from today, start thinking about what you want for your life. So how do you want your relationships to be? What is your ideal perfect relationship? What is your ideal job? What is your ideal work? Who are your ideal clients? What would you love to change in the world? What would you love your mark to be? What legacy do you want to leave? And just think about those kind of things, the typical, goal setting areas of your life. So it's generally health and well-being, philanthropy, money and finances, business and career, personal relationships, intimate relationships, and I know I've forgotten one, but you bear with me, you get the picture. So basically every area of your life, you want to be thinking about it from this point onwards, and then you can kind of get this gelled imagery and start creating this vividly imagined idea in your head of how you want your life to be. Give it a timeline. So how do you want your life to be in a year's time? And then you start to be able to pull in the foundational elements. Now, granted, you can't really design who you truly are, but it can help you to discover your values and discover your true beliefs. When you really start thinking about what matters to me and how do I want my life to be, it's amazing how often it will actually shine a light on certain values and key beliefs and core beliefs that you have that you may have forgotten or overlooked over the years. So just please really take the time and really design, really have this idea of how you want your life to be. So in the construction of the framework, we really want to be focusing on how you're going to achieve all of this. So you lay out the groundwork, you've got the groundwork done. So you are more aware, you're more self-aware, you're more aware, your perception is keener, and you have the ability to look at the world from multiple angles and look at life from multiple points of view and perspectives. So you have a much broader scope to work with than most people. So in the framework stage, in the framework level, we're talking about really getting to grips with the how. So it's like, how do you, so you want to live by the coast. How is that going to work? How do you want that to work? Okay, so there are certain key questions that people will start to ask naturally, that you'll start to kind of get into your head as you start doing this. And I want you to really consider the language you use, because it is key, it is crucial. So instead of, how is that going to work? Instead of that question, which is quite valid and quite legitimate, instead of asking, how is it going to work? Or how am I going to get it? Change it, shift it. Stay in touch with your true self and your core values by asking questions like, how would I like it to work? How would I love to get there? How would I love to achieve that? Okay, because that suggests that there's going to be more interaction along the way. Okay, in a sense of you are using your whole self in the process. You're using your entire self to create and build this framework of the life that you want in your relationships, in your work, in your pleasure time, leisure time, in your finances, in your health. You're creating this framework. So the framework element as well is where you create kind of, it's almost a mini outcome for your health and well-being. So what do you want your health and well-being to look like is the overall outcome that you want. But from a framework point of view, how are you going to achieve that? So how would you love to achieve a healthy lifestyle? Okay, what would you love to do on a daily basis that helps you to achieve mental balance and a healthy, happy, fit lifestyle? Okay, how would you love to be in an intimate relationship? So create kind of mini outcomes almost for each area of your life that create the framework. So create a framework that you can work with. So it's almost like having a process in place, a standard operating procedure, if you will. If you've ever worked in manufacturing, you know that is like paramount in most manufacturing processes, is you have standard operating procedures that you have to adhere to in order to produce the end product. And you can kind of apply that here, because if you've got a desired outcome, so you want to produce this dream life, this life by design, and to have a systematic approach is really useful. And I would encourage you to work on that and to create and to come up with a process or a series of processes, a series of copy and paste processes and standard operating procedures that you can follow to help achieve those outcomes in your relationships, in your work, in your interaction with other people, in your interaction with your clients, in your finances, and in your pleasure time, and in your intimate relationships as well. So that's the framework element, is where you create kind of like the pieces of the puzzle start coming together, and you start putting the walls on, you start building up, and you start to really create a sequence and a series of processes that you follow to achieve those desired outcomes in your relationships, in your health and well-being, in your finances, in your career and work. And that's the framework element of it. So what comes next is the detail. So the detail is literally that. It's where you really sit and you think about, as you're on the way to achieving your outcomes, fine-tune along the way. That's the details. Okay, so don't worry about decorating the house at the beginning. When you vividly imagine your outcome, imagine as much detail as you possibly get, as you can possibly do. So imagine in as clear as detail as possible how you want your life to be in all of the areas of your life that matter to you. And try and be as clear as possible with that, because that helps with the foundational elements. It helps enormously with the structure and the framework side of things. But also, as you're working through the processes and coming up with the processes to help you in the framework side, in the framework section tier of Life by Design, you get to add the detail, you get to be more specific. Because as you go along the route, something else may come into mind. And that's totally fine. It's not that this is a hard and fast set of goals that you have to work towards, because it's not. I've discussed in a previous video my issues with goals and the reason why I don't set goals as such. Instead, I have this process where I create a desired outcome. I know in my head exactly what I need, exactly what I want to achieve and create. And then I work backwards and I create a sequence and a series of objectives which, when met and when achieved, lead me to my desired outcome. And in order to achieve those objectives, I set myself daily projects, which is a really great way of doing it. It's really powerful. It works for me, works for many other people I've shared it with. So I recommend you give it a try. Go and watch the other video and, give it a try. Back to Life by Design. And this is really an interesting way to look at things, because Life by Design is where you really take the reins, essentially. You become project manager for your own life. So you become the man or woman, the key person in the process of creating this perfect life for you. So you are responsible for it. It's your job to create and design this wonderful, perfect life. It's your job to put the processes and procedures in place to help you get there, to help you achieve it. And it's your job to enjoy it. It's your job to make the most of every moment in the process. And it's your job to fill in the blanks and put in the detail. Because as time goes on, as you work through these three tiers, you'll find that new things come in. And that's totally fine. This is not a set of principles. This is not a set of plans that you have to adhere to rigidly. It's it's just a guide. Life by Design is about creating a guide for the life that you want to live. So creating this blueprint almost for the life that you want to live. Can you deviate from it? Of course you can. If something comes up that's different, that's better, go for it. Include it in the plans, include it in the design, and then just go live it. And Life by Design for me was revelationary. It was something of a revelation for me when I first came across this. And it was kind of a hybrid from something I learned from Michael Neal and Paul McKenna about how to set effective goals. And it was around the time I was realizing that goals just don't work for me. And if you check out my other video about why you're not achieving your goals, I explain more in there. And I also explain more in that video about the process I touched on earlier that I use and that other people use and have found enormous positive results with. So yeah, I kind of came up with the idea for Life by Design, which is still, a work in progress. We are works in progress, all of us. And our lives are too. It's not a case of, right, once you have the design in place, you can just get back and let life do its thing. It doesn't work that way. We're living life. We are growing all the time. Our infinite potential is always there. And the beauty about it, and it's like in my very first video where I touched on awareness, and I talked about awareness a little bit. Awareness to me, my definition of awareness is what you see of what there is to be seen. And the huge presupposition in that statement is that there's always more to see. So you might see that you're seeing a whole load of stuff about the world and about who you are, but honestly, there's always more. So, and Life by Design came from an amalgamation of everything I've ever learned. And I kind of put it together for me first. And I thought, okay, I'm going to see if this works and see if this is actually applicable. And then I'm going to share it. So here I am sharing it. And this is my first time sharing it. So it's a little rough around the edges. Needs a bit of fine tuning in my interpretation and my explanation of it. But I couldn't wait to get it out there. I couldn't wait to share it with you all and just say that, Life by Design is how it needs to be. It's how it should be for everybody. We should be taking the leading role in our own story. We should be taking an active, interested part in creating our own lives. And for me, it's not something that's nice to do. It's an imperative for me now that I'm the one in charge of how I get to live my life, about the life I get to live. So that's where this is coming from. That's where this idea comes from, is the fact that I was fed up with being in a job that I hated. And I had to get up excruciatingly early. And it's a case of, well, no, I don't want to do that anymore. There's got to be more to life than this. And that was really what kickstarted my personal development journey 20 plus years ago. And so it became an intrinsic part of who I was. And I've been finding all these techniques from books and courses and events. And I've been pulling away and taking this stuff away. And I very quickly got out of the habit of trying to live by them as a set of rules. But instead it's a case of, well, actually, what I learned from Tony Robbins doesn't really work for me except this one thing. So I'm just going to pull that one away and I'm going to use that. And then what I read in Michael Neal's book, it kind of works for me except this bit, so I'm going to leave that bit out. And I wonder if that Tony Robbins thing that Tony Robbins thing sits nicely in here. So I end up over the years creating this kind of hybridized, or some might say bastardized, ideas and ideals and processes and little mini techniques and procedures and ideas and concepts to use for myself and to help me, which I've found to work. And I found to work not just for me, but other people have reported great success with these too. So, I mean, I'm just happy to share those with you and happy to share my experiences with you and to put them out there and just say, look, feel free, take away what you want from this. The idea behind Life by Design was very simple, and it's that you are back in charge. So you are the one that's designing your life. You're the one with the plans. You're coming up with the plans. You're laying out the foundations. So, you know the level of awareness you need to have. You know the perceptions that you need to have, how you need to see things. And you know the perspectives that you need to adopt in order to see the world and your life the right way in order to build upon that. Okay, so that's the important part about Life by Design, is the fact that you are the one in charge. You are the project manager for your own life. So you get to design it, you get to build it, you get to decorate it, you get to live in it. So that's why I wanted to produce this video today, this particular one, is because I think it's important now more than ever to realize that ultimately we are in charge. Society might want us to behave a certain way, and peer pressure might dictate that we behave a certain way, and we might feel bad that we don't, given circumstances that are around us. But we are the ones in charge. We get to choose how we live our life. We get to choose the life that we want to live. So we get to choose our outcomes. And then we get to choose how we want to get them. So without further ado, I'm going to leave it there. Otherwise, it's going to quickly segue into a different conversation entirely. And I really don't want that for this content. I want to be able to focus on something and give you enough detail so that you can take it away and work with it and go away and use it and try it out and try it on for size, see if it fits. So, as I say, Life by Design is all about you being in charge of you. You're the one in charge of designing your life from the ground up. So you get to design, you get to do the designs, you get to build the foundations, you get to build the framework, and you get to essentially finish it off with the details. So that's Life by Design. I'm sure I will think of a potentially a better way to explain it and come out with another follow-up video to this as I sit and think with it a little bit more how best to explain it. But I hope it's been useful. I hope you've been able to take away something from this, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video very, very soon. So if you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more great content, all to do with you. It's all about you. This channel is designed purely with you in mind. I wanted a platform where I can share my knowledge, my experiences, my understandings and my ideas with you that will help you to create your life by design, to really take back control of your life, to start living your best life and becoming the best version of you that you can be and unleashing that unlimited, beautiful potential that you all have. So thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.